Throughout human history, whoever controls the oceans controls resources, trade routes, war, and the future of power. That's not an opinion, that's history. And right now, while we're still staring at the same old maps, a brand new ocean is quietly being born. Not in the tropics, not in the south, but in the frozen north, where the next global struggle may begin. But at the top of the planet, and far to the north, farther than most people ever think about, a brand new ocean is quietly coming into existence. Right now, I'm walking through what feels like a forgotten battlefield. Except there were no soldiers here, just leftovers. Rusting American military hardware lies scattered across Greenland, the largest island on Earth, like history was packed up and abandoned. This isn't subtle. Massive structures, old buildings, Cold War relics. The US built much of this during World War II, expanded it during the Cold War, and then, once the world supposedly calmed down, simply walked away. Nearby stands an enormous radar dish, impossible to miss. It looks like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. Back then, it was part of a chain of Arctic radar stations designed to spot Soviet bombers crossing the polar route. Early warning, doomsday prevention. The sky was constantly scanned for threats that, thankfully, never arrived. When the Cold War faded, the US sold the entire settlement, every building, every structure, back to Greenland's government for $1. Because at the time, everything felt stable. The Soviet Union collapsed, tensions cooled, the Arctic returned to being remote, frozen, and strategically boring. That assumption didn't age well. I want to show you what this place actually looks like, on the ground. Not a map, not a headline, reality. Because understanding Greenland is going to be essential if you want to understand one of the biggest geopolitical shifts of the coming decades. Ice, it turns out, isn't simple. The people who live here know that. Most of us are still catching up. But the truth is, Greenland is deeply misunderstood, politically, culturally, strategically, and that's about to change, fast. The truth about Trump's Greenland ambition.
I have tremendous respect for both the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark. Tremendous respect.
Because the top of the planet isn't land, it's ocean. And throughout history, the powers that dominated the oceans dominated everything else. Britain, Spain, the United States. The Arctic was different. For centuries, this ocean remained locked under ice. No shipping lanes, no navies, no real incentive to fight over it. Too cold, too dangerous, too inaccessible. So geopolitically, it stayed quiet. That quiet is over. Human activity wrapped the planet in a thin, invisible blanket of carbon, trapping heat. Just a few degrees. But up here, a few degrees changes everything. Compare Arctic ice coverage from the 1980s to today. The difference is dramatic. The Arctic is warming about 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. New shipping routes that cut weeks off global trade. Oil, gas, minerals, influence, control. Canada claims the Northwest Passage as internal waters. Russia has planted military bases along its Arctic coast, and even planted a flag on the sea floor beneath the North Pole. The United States is investing over $1 billion in new icebreakers to patrol waters it once ignored. And China, despite not being an Arctic nation at all, is moving north too, partnering with Russia on what it calls the Ice Silk Road, investing roughly $10 billion across Arctic-adjacent regions. Things are moving everywhere. And one place appears in every serious conversation about Arctic power: Greenland. For most of modern history, Greenland was overlooked, too remote, too cold, too inconvenient, until the ice began to melt. Because when ice disappears, value appears. If you're a global power trying to project influence into a newly opening Arctic Ocean, Greenland isn't just useful, it's perfectly positioned. Most of the island lies inside the Arctic Circle. That's why early explorers launched North Pole expeditions from here more than a century ago. The United States recognized that value early. So early, in fact, that it convinced Denmark, Greenland's colonial ruler at the time, to forcibly relocate an Inuit community to build an air base. This entire situation was summed up perfectly by a man whose career revolved around one instinct: identifying land that was about to matter.
Wants to buy
A large real estate deal. So the concept came up, and I said, certainly, I'd be strategically, it's interesting.
That one sentence says a lot. Right behind me stands the new U.S. consulate in Nuuk. After the Buy Greenland episode, when Denmark very politely but very firmly said absolutely not, the Trump administration changed tactics. But the U.S. isn't the only power paying attention. There's another heavyweight circling. One that, geographically speaking, has no real business being in the Arctic. China. Back in 2017, Greenland faced a very practical problem: airports. Most of the country can't handle large commercial aircraft, small planes, helicopters. Great for adventurers, terrible for economic growth. Greenland needed bigger airports, desperately. But airports cost serious money, and no one wanted to pay. Except China. Greenland's prime minister went to Beijing and asked directly, would China help fund new airports? China said yes. Loan approved. With one condition: Chinese construction companies would build them. Greenland agreed. On paper, it made sense. Washington panicked, because China has a pattern: loans first, influence later. Debt becomes leverage, leverage becomes power. The idea of Greenland, strategically priceless and sitting next to North America, owing money to Beijing? Unacceptable.
The Pentagon reportedly ran worst-case scenarios. What if Greenland defaulted? What if China seized the airports? What if they became military hubs? Dramatic? Maybe. But leverage is leverage. So the U.S. intervened. Quietly, firmly, they pressured Denmark to block the deal. Denmark complied. In the end, Denmark funded roughly 2/3 of the airport projects itself. China was shut out. Again. But Beijing didn't walk away. Next target? Rare earth minerals. The unglamorous backbone of modern life. Smartphones, electric vehicles, wind turbines, data centers. China already dominates global supply chains. Greenland looked like a way to lock that dominance in and gain Arctic access at the same time. A Chinese firm moved to finance a zinc and lead mine in northern Greenland. Everything seemed aligned. Then suddenly, the Australian company that owned the mine backed out. Shortly after that, a $650 million check from the United States appeared. The project was funded. Coincidence? You decide. Once again, China hit a wall. Another Chinese mining company later had its licenses revoked entirely by Greenland's government. Between US pressure and local opposition, Beijing kept getting sidelined.
China's words and actions raise doubts about its intentions. Beijing claims to be a near-Arctic state, yet the shortest distance between China and the Arctic is 900 miles.
Message received. The US has made its position clear. China does not belong in the Arctic power game. Not here, not at Greenland's doorstep. And this isn't just about blocking rivals. The US has expanded its own presence as well. Billions invested in Arctic military infrastructure. A $4 billion upgrade to the air and space base in northern Greenland. Cold weather training. Troops practicing what conflict might look like at the top of the world. At the same time, Washington is offering Greenland direct financial support. Millions of dollars for mining development, tourism, and economic independence. But there's one question that matters more than all of this. What do Greenlanders actually want? I came to Nuuk to talk to people, because this is their island. Always has been.
do you see the Greenland is changing now or not?
I want there more.
You want more changes?
Yes.
It's still like...
I want to be released from Denmark.
You want to get separate, independent?
Yeah.
Greenlanders are beginning to recognize their leverage, their position, their value. They're cautious, but not naive. And that's the shift. As the planet warms and the Arctic opens, the map is being redrawn, quietly, unevenly. Greenland, once ignored, once dismissed, is suddenly holding cards everyone wants. Denmark without Greenland is tiny, very tiny. The ice is melting, the ocean is opening. And this island, long overlooked, is no longer just scenery. It's leverage. Thank you for watching.